Do you know that you ought to live your life being comfortable with being uncomfortable? That's what we're talking about on the Voice of Faith. Galatians chapter 5, verse 13, it says, "For you, brethren, have been called to liberty. Only do not use your liberty as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another." Now, all week we've been dealing with and talking about how we're not to live in the flesh, walk in the flesh, because that flesh is always going to leave us short of what God has for us. It's going to take us out of the will of God. And we talked about that all week long. And here in this scripture in Galatians, it tells us that we've been called to liberty. We've been called to be free to live our life doing God's will through our life. But what happens? Many times we go back into the bondage of living in the flesh, walking after the flesh, and when we do that, it limits God in our life and it limits us fulfilling what God has for us to do in and through our life. So how do we get out of the flesh? It tells us through love, serve one another. Now, the definition of love, the short definition of love, is that it's to be unselfish, that you're not living for yourself, but you're living for God, you're living for others. If you'll live for God and you live for others, then you're going to serve one another. You ought to be thinking, how can I serve one another? If all you're thinking about is how you can serve yourself, that you're self-serving and you want to please yourself, you want to please your flesh and things that you want to do, then you're going to miss out on the best part of life. Matter of fact, you're going to be miserable. You can never satisfy or gratify the flesh. It always wants more. It's never satisfied. It's never gratified, even though it's always making demands on you. And it doesn't matter how much you cater to it, it's still not going to be satisfied. It will leave you irritated, frustrated. It will leave you in a place where you don't want to live. And so make sure that you're working the Word. Why? Because if you work the Word will work.